Hello, my name is Rick Lewis. I'm with Phenom Hoop Report. On today's Coach's Corner segment, I have Coach Robbie St. From Athens Drive. Welcome, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rick.
Coach, when did you decide teaching and coaching was a profession you wanted to make a career change out of?
I think I was very fortunate early age. My father volunteered to coach the teams that I was involved in. And just the bond that we shared then and still have now through sport made an impact on my life. Watching him pick up so many of the neighborhood kids and taking them home each night to just realizing that not everybody's parents were able to invest that kind of time, I think also had an impact. And then later on in high school, I had a varsity coach that just kind of gave me a glimpse of how coaches can impact young adults, and that just sparked an interest in me.
Now, Coach, in 1999, you graduated from Liberty University, and then in 2003, you became a head coach or an assistant coach at Patrick Henry High School in Roanoke, Virginia. What were some of the lessons you learned early on being an assistant coach?
PH was such a great experience for me. One, it has such a rich basketball tradition, and then two, I just don't think I could have learned from a better coach than Jack Esworthy. During our first season, I was there as a varsity assistant, and our JV coach quit second game of the season. And so Coach Esworthy pulled me aside and asked me to pull double duty. So I became his head JV coach and would practice and coach with them, and then turn right around and be in varsity practice and doing the things required of a varsity assistant. So I learned just so quickly during that year. Then the next thing was that that was around the time of the Gulf War, and Coach Esworthy is a reservist in the U.S. Army. So during either our second or third season, he was activated and was stationed about 3.5 hours away from our campus. So our nights were spent collaborating on what he needed to have done the next day in practice. And then I would run our practices, and Coach Esworthy's CEO allowed him to come in and coach games. So I think, those circumstances and then just his trust in me just accelerated my growth tremendously as a young coach.
I'm sure that's a good learning experience. You're being the head coach of the JV program, but also at the same time, you're the assistant to the varsity. So you get to learn from someone who has a lot of experience, but at the same time, implement what you're learning from him and also put it in your own situation as being the head coach of the JV program.
Right. And because of that, when I became a head coach, I always wanted our JV head coaches to sit on our bench to gain that same experience. And then also because they're able to implement the things that are in our systems. And there's a lot of times that they can see things differently than we do. And just being able to rely on their knowledge as well.
Now, you spent 4 years at Patrick Henry in Roanoke, Virginia, and then in 2007, you had an opportunity to be the head coach of the JV program at James Island, South Carolina. What was that like?
If I'm being honest, I fell into a trap that a lot of young coaches fall into. My priorities at the time were to amass as many wins as possible so that I could impress the neighboring ADs and administrators, because I wanted to prove that I was ready for a varsity job. And then I look back and I see that first and foremost, my job wasn't to win basketball games at the JV level. My job was to provide a foundation for our guys to be better players for our varsity team, and then to use basketball as an opportunity to maybe teach those guys some life lessons. We won a lot of games there, but I missed the opportunity to really impact those guys in a significant way. So when I look back on my time in Charleston, it's with the knowledge that I was not the JV coach that I would demand in my program now today.
Well, I would imagine being a JV coach that you don't really look at, like you said, wins and losses. It's preparing the foundation for the varsity, because there's very few situations where someone says, what's your record as a JV coach? You really start talking about wins and losses more or less when you're at the varsity level.
Correct. And that's, when you're a younger coach, you don't realize that, but you're right. If people were talking about wins and losses, it was either friends of yours that are just trying to show interest, or you were bringing it up in conversation, trying to validate who you were as a coach. We tell our JV coaches now that if you need that validation, then point to how many freshmen you prepared to play varsity their sophomore year versus their junior year. Like, how quickly did you prepare those guys, and what impact do you have on their lives that later are gonna play a significant role?
Now, James Island is located near Charleston, South Carolina. What was it like living in such a historical town?
Oh, I was so blessed to be in Charleston. A living situation was perfect for me. We were 1 mile from the school, 5 minutes from Folly Beach, and 7-minute drive across the connector, and you're in downtown Charleston. Still my favorite city in the U.S. I love the quaintness of downtown, the people there, the weather, beaches, the cuisine. It's an amazing place.
I would agree with you, Coach. Charleston is my favorite city to go to. I just love the charm to the city and the history and the beauty of the city, and also the beaches. And if you like to eat, they got a lot of great restaurants in Charleston as well.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
Now, Coach, after you spent some time down in Charleston, you had an opportunity to go back to Virginia, and in 2009, you became the head coach at William Campbell High School in Virginia. How difficult was it going from a JV level? Now you're at the varsity level, and that's what everybody wants to achieve as far as being a varsity high school basketball coach.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that tend to smack you in the face when you make that first jump. The first thing is that as a coach, there are things that you can get away with at the JV level that you can be very successful with that just doesn't translate to varsity basketball, especially against well-coached teams or teams that just have superior athletes. So, William Campbell was a great place for me, because the first thing it taught me is that basketball is if you're going to be a head coach, there's so much more that goes into it than just the X's and O's. And there's so much more that goes into preparing for just practicing games. William Campbell had not had a great deal of success prior to my arrival, so they were willing to take a chance on an inexperienced and younger coach and allow me to learn kind of the trial by fire method. But it also gave me the opportunity to start realizing that coaching had to be so much more than just what we did basketball wise, that there's such an opportunity to inspire our younger athletes to dream bigger than their current experiences. So we spent a lot of time with those kids defining what success would look like for that group, how we were going to succeed that success. And then I think most importantly, before I left, we had an opportunity to sit down and say, okay, how do we handle success now that we've gotten there? And I think those are lessons that will carry through with those guys.
Coach, talk about also the difficulty as far as being in coaching. Now, you started out in Roanoke, Virginia at Patrick Henry. Then you moved down to James Island. You were there for a few years, and now you're going from James Island down to William Campbell in Virginia. And then now in 2013, you become the head coach at Hopewell High School. So, in order to get where you want to be, sometimes you have to make a lot of changes along the way. The coaching industry is a very fluid business. Talk about that.
So there's a part of you when you're talking to kids, you want to model consistency for them, but at the same time, as a younger coach, you feel like you're constantly looking for that next opportunity. And so there's an internal struggle that I had was I wanted to get to a place in which we felt like we could set down roots and just be 100% a part of that community. The two toughest things I think we do as coaches, the first one is cutting players. And the second one is having to tell a team that you've invested and poured yourself into that you're leaving to go somewhere else. I think in all things we can learn from the ways we do things, and we can learn from others. But that is a tough part of our industry is the fluidity of it. And I think finding that place that you can say, okay, no matter what, we got to invest and make this one ours. And so I think now at Athens we've done that. I thought we had done that at Hopewell, but sometimes plans are made for you. So.
Now, Coach, you made an interesting comment. One of the toughest jobs as a coach is cutting players. Elaborate on that.
Well, your situation, and I don't think it matters whether it's a big school or a small school. You have kids who want so badly to be a part of something, and they have in their minds how that's supposed to look. If you're being fair and honest with your team, you can only keep so many kids before in my opinion, we try to keep ours between 12 and 13. Anything after that, you feel like you're starting to take reps away from other guys. It's hard for those guys that closeness that you have with that 12 or 13. I mean, and people tell me all the time, we're just adding 1 or 2 kids. Well, we invest a lot in our kids. It's a lot of time that goes into it. And at the end of the day, players play basketball because they want to play. It's hard for any young athlete to practice at the rate that we demand and then come and sit in a uniform in front of their friends and in front of their family and never get in the game. So in fairness, you have to make cuts. And there's some that as coaches we feel are just, they're obvious. These guys aren't going to be able to help us, but for those kids, it's still hurtful. And so we've always gone with the philosophy that we bring in every single kid. We look them eye to eye, and we either say, hey, look, this is the expectation for you this year, and we expect to see you practice tomorrow. Or we look at them and say, hey, I just don't think we have a spot for you. Here's a couple reasons why. And then we always shake their hand and thank them for their effort, because I believe they deserve that.
Well, the second thing that stood out was the hardest thing as a coach is also when you have to make that change and move from one location to the other. Now, in 2014, you had a great year at Hopewell. You went 24-4, and that was a very successful year. And that's sort of what you want as a head coach at the high school level. Now you're in a situation that, you're going to take another career change and you're going to make a move to Raleigh and be the coach at Athens Road. How difficult was it to leave Hopewell when you just had such a great season at 24-4?
Yeah. My wife will tell you that we might not have fully left Hopewell, but there's probably still a piece of us there. Hopewell was the first time in my coaching career that I was at a school that I had competed against in high school. It was right down the road from where I grew up. And so it was the first time that my family living in the area could invest and be a part of the program as well and become part of that fan base. It makes it a little different when you can look up in the stands and consistently see people from your family. At least it did for me. I think the hardest part of leaving Hopewell was that it's a community that backs the school 110%. They back their kids 110%, and those kids will do anything you ask of them because they're so hungry for something positive and they just want to be successful. Those players relished the discipline that we require in our program, and they embraced having consistent male figures who would just love on them. So, while we didn't ever have a future college basketball player on our roster, we consistently beat good teams that had high D1 players and actually an eventual pro. And so Hopewell is not for everyone because the community really makes outsiders earn their trust. But I love it, and I miss their passion, and I feel very fortunate that I'm still in contact with some of the coaches that I coached with, and some of the principals that I taught under, and then the players that I was fortunate to coach.
That's the one thing I've noticed, Coach, talking to other coaches in North and South Carolina and Virginia, that if you're coaching at a very, rural school, the community is really supportive. They're really behind the school because in those smaller communities, everything really does evolve around high school sports.
It truly does. And so, it's a different feel. The gyms are packed out for games. Pep bands are dueling across the court from each other. Your games are usually televised, and if not, they're on the radio. So it gives the players a sense of being such a big fish in a small pond, and they take such pride in it. And community, it feels like that there's this crazy tension in the gym because people feel like they're living and dying on the outcome of just that night. So it's definitely a different feel.
Now, Coach, in 2015, you and your wife moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. It was a career change for her, and we always said behind every good man is a good woman. So you followed in your wife's footsteps as far as the job path and the career path. So when you moved down to Raleigh, you had the opportunity to become the head coach at Athens Drive.
Right.
Now, when you took that job the year before, they went 0-23. What was your mindset going into that?
Well, the first thing is that just the understanding that you nailed it when you said the part of having a good woman. God has blessed me far beyond what I deserve with Channing. She's been so supportive. She's a staple in our program, and she invests in our kids. So when she came to me, and she really didn't, I could tell that something was just eating her up because, like you said, we were having such success at Hopewell, and it was the week that we were preparing for a game in the state Final Four, and her office had just basically told her she had to move to the Triangle area. And so, when we decided we had to make that move, and I was looking around and saw that Athens needed a coach, you check out Max Preps and you see what it is you might be inheriting and what they were doing, and 0-23 does stick out. But if I'm being honest, I think my mindset was kind of the same as it was at our other stops. I felt like that if we could install a program that was based on discipline and accountability, that we could probably turn things around. And I've always believed in our systems and our programs having to be defense first oriented. It's great when a kid walks in the gym and can score the basketball, but the consistency in that is just not there at the same level it is that you can take, in my opinion, any athlete that'll give you great effort. You can teach them how to be a part of team discipline. Team defense. And the other part is the old adage, defense travels. And so in order for us to be successful at Athens, I felt like we had to do something that we could consistently hang our hat on. And so that therefore we were going to have to really throw ourselves into the defensive end. And then the message we just kept telling our guys was that we needed them to understand that basketball, just like life, is tough and often unfair. So any level of achievement that we had, we were going to always strive to earn that. And so, all of our slogans always say earn, not given. And that's been a big part of our culture at Athens.
Coach, what really amazed me about you is going into Athens Road, and you had an 0-23 record the year before, and you came there as the head coach. What was remarkable was that first year, you went 9-16. That's a pretty good turnaround in just one short period of time. And then the second year, this is even more amazing. Your second year at Athens Drive, you went 16-11. I mean, you basically turned that program around into a winning culture in 2 years. What were some of the deciding factors that you think that contribute to the success you had at such an early time at Athens Drive?
I think it really started with our players knowing that the coaches that were responsible for them genuinely and truly loved them. And we show that to them in so many different ways. Our players come from so many different walks of life. And I think it's important that players can trust that the coaches that are responsible for them are going to genuinely pour into their lives, that it's not a we say you do situation, that we're in this thing together. We set very high expectations for our players from the very beginning, but our players know that we're going to work with them to meet those expectations. And so I think that just that level of trust and that the way we do things in a culture of togetherness has really changed our program.
Well, Coach, you went from 16-11, your second year, your third year at Athens Drive. You had an unbelievable 18-9 record, and then the year after that, you went 18-8. So for those second, third, and fourth years, you had 16, 18, and 18 wins. And that's inherent to a program that won 0 games when you got there. That's a testament to you as a person and as a coach. Now, Coach, you also said the team won its first conference championship in 22 years. What did that mean to you and also the program?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it was just validation for those guys that put in, the long hours and were willing to work through uncomfortable times. No matter where they end up in life, they're always going to be able to walk into the gym at 1420 Athens Drive in Raleigh and look up in the rafters and point to a banner and say that one's theirs. And I think that in itself is special. When the banner went up, some of our guys took a picture of it and sent it to the guys that had moved on, and just their reactions and responses to something they already knew was going to happen was priceless. So I mean, anytime you set a team up for something and you watch them achieve, I think it's.
Coach, you mentioned to me earlier that you love coaching at Athens Drive because of the diverse makeup of the school population. Talk about that.
Rick, Athens is it's a beautiful cross section of our nation. It's so diverse in so many different areas and so many different aspects. And a lot of times we talk about diversity, we simply talk about the difference in race. But while that is present at Athens, we have, if I'm not mistaken, we have the largest percentage of special needs students of any campus in Wake County. So you have a difference in learning levels and just physical and emotional levels. We have a difference in religious beliefs. We hit every ladder on the socioeconomic rung, and so we hit every rung on the socioeconomic ladder. So it's one of those things that there's so many differences amongst our students, and so our students get to attend classes and have the opportunity to collaborate and communicate with people who are different from them on a daily basis. And I think that in itself is amazing, and I think that should prepare them for what life should look like outside of Athens.
Let me ask you this, Coach. What are some of your basic coaching philosophies?
We try to keep it simple. I think the first and foremost, what I've learned is that this job allows you to use basketball as the medium to prepare young men for their best futures. And the second thing is that we try to make everything about choices. We tell our players that they either going to have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And while that sounds like there's no easy way out, I just think so often in our lives we either get to make the choice to work through what's uncomfortable for us now, or we're going to regret it later. I think in any well-run basketball program that the young men are always taught hard work and preparation, and hopefully someone sits down with them and shows them, let's set some short and long-term goals. I think we just strive to take that further in the sense that we want to talk to our guys about the different life skills and characteristics that they're going to need to be successful. We show them how to write measurable goals, how to write plans to achieve those goals, so that they can go back in that process and see where they've progressed and where they need to make adjustments. And then we talk about things that we feel that are going to be important for their futures. We talk about humility and gratitude, respect, the need to give back. And we have open dialogue about race relations, what's going on in their households and their neighborhoods, and then how we as a collective whole can make our community of Athens Drive stronger.
Coach, in 17 years, you've been coaching. You've coached in Virginia. You've coached in South Carolina, back to Virginia and North Carolina. In your 17 years as an assistant coach and also as a head coach, what's some of the biggest challenges you face today?
I think it's misguided priorities. We have this unrealistic expectation that because a kid laces up some basketball shoes and puts a few shots up on the weekend, that somehow he's going to make it to the league. There's nothing wrong with working hard to be a valuable member of a high school team. Especially in Wake County, most of our schools have over 2,000 students in the student body. So if you make a roster of 12 of 13 out of that large student body, you've accomplished something just there. And very few get to go on and play in college, and even a microscopic percentage of that get to go on and play pro. So when I say misguided priorities, I just kind of feel like that our priority should be that we're investing in our students' education. If we invested in the kids' education as much as we do in their basketball development, I just think we would be so much better off.
What would you say some of your purposes are as a coach?
As I get older, I think my purpose or goal, if you will, would be that when I hang up my whistle, that I know that I gave kids the opportunity to be strong heads of their household, that I equip them to be successful in whatever their chosen workplace or career is, and show them what it means to be leaders in their community.
I like the comment you said earlier. I think this was when you were in Virginia. You said, being part of that small rural community, you said a lot of these young men, the hardest thing to do as a coach was cutting kids, because there's a lot of young players that they just want to be part of something special. And a lot of times it's just being part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's, environment, I think the thing that's impressive about what you said about being at Athens Drive is you said it had a very diverse makeup as far as, the student population. And I think the thing that we look at today is we see all the racism and social injustice that's occurring in our country today.
Right.
And we talked about it earlier offline, where we talked about, isn't it a great opportunity for the students and players at a school like Athens Drive with the diverse background to help set the tone for the community?
Yeah, and we talked about this, such a pivotal time in our country, and while I would never push my personal religious beliefs on my players, we do encourage them to believe in something. I think the very worst thing that anyone could be is a fence sitter. You got to know where you stand in life, and there's got to be action behind that. So what we want to do is to have our kids to understand that just because we're a small group, it doesn't mean that we can't impact change and we can't make a difference. So we preach to our guys that their actions will always speak louder than who they claim to be.
Right.
And that if we make our community, and when I say that, the Athens community, better, then that should have a ripple effect. Unfortunately, I think we discussed in our society, we're just so conditioned to be so quick to judge others and then to put up walls for things that we might not understand, or we might fear, or that just look different or make us uncomfortable. So we want our kids, and one of our big goals for our guys is for them to learn how to treat the people in our community with the respect that they deserve, and to not judge them on appearance or even how they might act in a singular moment. to hold ourselves first accountable before we're worried about the actions of others, and then to give the people around us room to be fallible, and just love them. I mean, I think that in itself could impact change.
The coach, the thing that impressed me about you and speaking with you earlier is, like, I'm sure like everybody else, when you got into coaching, it was about wins and losses. But quickly, as you got into it, you found out it was more than wins and losses. It was about preparing young men for the next phase of their life. You're basically, the 4 years that you spend with a young man at the high school level, you're preparing them for the next 40 years of their life.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to, I just believe that God gives all of us certain gifts, and then it's up to us to take those gifts and use it to the best of our abilities. This is what I truly believe that I was called to do, and I don't think that calling was to see how many wins I can amass. There's so many factors that go into winning at a high level, that are out of our control. And we've always preached to our guys that let's worry about the things we can control. And so in doing that, it's hard to constantly tell your kids you want them to do one thing, but then model something else. That just doesn't work. At least it doesn't for me. So anything we implement in our program, we tell our coaches that if you can't do it 100% of the time, then don't bring it up to the kids, because we are the consistent role model that those kids see on a daily basis, no matter what their home situation is like, because basketball is so important and we have that commonality with them.
Coach, earlier you said, and it really stuck with me, you said one of the hardest things you ever had to do as a coach is cutting young men.
Mm-hmm.
That stuck with me because that shows the empathy that you have for the young players that are trying out for the team. And as you said before, these are young men who want to be part of something.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, when you really think about it, for you to make that comment just speaks volume about who you are as a person. But I think it's your philosophy of the concern, the care, the empathy that you have for all your players. That's the reason why you took Athens Drive that went 0-23. You turned them around. You won 9 games your first year there. Then you won 18, 18, and 16 games in your next 3 years. And I think that's because you're just a great human being and just a great person. And what you're trying to install in your players is much greater than basketball.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I don't know that I'm a great person. I like to think that especially in our coaching fraternity around the Raleigh area, that most of the coaches are doing the same things that we're doing. That they're trying to impact the lives of kids, just using basketball kind of as the tool to do it. I've seen through social media and other things what other coaches are doing at this time with their players and how they're trying to impact change. And so we just want to be a part of that.
Well, Coach, thank you for being on Coach's Corner. I wanted to share your story, your journey with the viewers out there, because when I first spoke to you, I was so impressed with, as I said before, the empathy that you have for your players and your true meaning as far as being a coach. And we just want to wish Athens Drive all the success this coming season. And if we can do anything at Phenom Hoop Report, we'll be glad to be doing it for you day in, day out. So again, thank you for coming on, and best of luck to you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. Enjoyed the chance to talk to you.
Thank you, Coach.
Uh-huh.